So now Tiresias has arrived. He's a blind prophet, and he's led by a little boy. Um, Oedipus begins by paying homage to Tiresias and letting him know that he's the one that could be our champion. He could rescue us. Oedipus tells Tiresias that, look, here's what Apollo has told us. There's a killer here, the killer of Laius, and we need to find out who he is so that we can rid him from our land. Okay, so Tiresias' opening lines here at 337. How terrible is wisdom when it brings no profit to the man that's wise. And this is an opening allusion here to what this wisdom is going to do to Oedipus. Oedipus is in a state of ignorance right now, but once he does know, it's going to be terrible. And of course, this kind of brings into question for us the idea that knowledge is always and everywhere a good, right? We normally think that it's always better to know than to be in ignorance. And yet Tiresias' opening lines are that to really call that into question and say, maybe in some cases ignorance is better than knowing. And Tiresias says, please, just let me go home, right? It's easier for us if we just don't have to go through with this. And Oedipus just doesn't understand this, doesn't understand why Tiresias would refuse him. And he says that your own words, Oedipus, miss the mark. You don't get it. You don't understand why I want to go and not tell you this. And Tiresias responds that all of those here in Thebes don't know anything about this situation, and he doesn't want to bring to the light of day his own troubles rather than call them yours. So Tiresias would rather just live with the knowledge by himself than make everyone else know it. Oedipus again, questioning, confused, doesn't understand it. Tiresias responds and says, look, I'm not going to bring this pain upon us both. Why do you question me? I will tell you nothing. Tiresias is refusing here. And now Oedipus just absolutely loses it. He is so hot-headed at this point, so quick with his temper. Calls Tiresias a villain. And Tiresias immediately responds to him and says, look, you're blaming my temper, but you don't see your own temper. They continue on with this back and forth. And Tiresias says, look, let your temper rage as wildly, but I'm not going to say anything. And then Oedipus continues on and says, yes, I am so angry. I'm not going to hold back. And I actually accuse you of being a co-plotter in the deed. And he says to him, if you had eyes, I would have said that you did it yourself. Right? Look at how quickly Oedipus went from frustration with Tiresias to now accusing him, saying, oh, this is why you're not telling me, because you want to save yourself. And so finally Tiresias says, look, I warned you, but now I'm going to have to tell you, you, Oedipus, are the land's pollution, right there at 384. You are the land's pollution. You are the miasma. Okay? And Oedipus says, like, how dare you say something like that to me? How do you think you're going to escape by saying something like that? Tiresias says, look, I've got the truth. That's my strength. I don't need anything else. Okay? All right. And now Tiresias, of course, still didn't understand it. Oedipus still didn't understand it, so Tiresias repeats it, said, I say you are the murderer of the king whose murderer you seek. So twice now it's been repeated here. Okay? And then Tiresias at 400 goes further. I say that you that you, with those you love best, live in foulest shame unconsciously, and do not see where you are in calamity. Okay. So Oedipus continues now with these threats. Look, how can you keep saying these? How can you keep accusing me of these kinds of things? But at 4:05, Tiresias says again, look, I've got the truth. The truth is my strength. Okay? And Oedipus returns to it and says, the truth has no strength for you because you are blind and mind is in ears as well as your eyes. Right? The irony, of course, is we know about what's going to happen to Oedipus here soon enough. And Tiresias now starts to pity Oedipus to some extent. You're a poor wretch to taunt me with the very insults which everyone will soon heap upon yourself. Okay? We know what insults are going to be soon heaped upon Oedipus, but he doesn't. All right? Okay. All right. So, the two men continue. They have their argument. Now, not only impugning Tiresias as he did at the outset, Oedipus, not content with that, will also impugn Creon, and says that he believes Creon maybe has put up Tiresias to this. Okay? Now Oedipus has a moment of great hubris here, saying, look, none of you could figure out how to solve the riddle of the Sphinx. None of you. Tiresias couldn't figure it out, and this was your task. And look at what he says here at 4:35. I came, I, Oedipus, who knew nothing, and I stopped her. I solved the riddle by my wits alone. And now you would expel me because you think you will find a place by Creon's throne. So look at that. I mean, what Oedipus is saying about himself here, that I'm the one who solved this. I'm the one who once saved this kingdom. And I won't be, pushed aside just because of something a blind prophet has to say. The chorus tries to check Oedipus here, and says, look, we see that both you and Tiresias are speaking in anger. And the chorus tries to calm them both down. We need no angry words, but only thought how we may best hit the God's meaning for us. And now Tiresias responds. Their interaction is going to soon come to a close. And now Tiresias pulls Oedipus in close and says, here is everything I have to say to you. Here is my word for you. You have your eyes, but see not where you are in sin, nor where you live, nor whom you live with. Do you know who your parents are? Unknowing, you are an enemy to kith and kin, in death, beneath the earth, and in this life. A deadly-footed, double-striking curse from father and mother both shall drive you forward out of this land with darkness on your eyes that now have such straight vision. Notice what he said there. Every line of this is going to somehow come true. And notice, we don't know this, or Oedipus hasn't said this yet, but we know that this must strike a chord with Oedipus because he's been asked, do you know who your parents are? And we're going to find out in just a few hundred lines that Oedipus had doubts about his own parents and his own lineage. Notice that Tiresias says you are an enemy both to your family who are alive and dead. And this curse is double striking. It's a curse in terms of both your father and your mother. Okay? And he says to here down towards the end, 472, of the multitude of other evils, there will be established a grim equality between you and your children. Notice, this is now the incest claim. Muddy with contempt my words and Creon's, Tiresias exclaims. Misery shall grind no man as it will grind you. You, Oedipus, will be the most miserable man in the world. Okay? Oedipus again doesn't understand, curses Tiresias and says, "Get out of my house, out of my kingdom." Tiresias says, "I wouldn't have come unless you made me." Um, and he says to Oedipus, "I am a fool to you, but to the parents who have bred you, I am wise." Meaning, I know who has bred you. I know your lineage. And Oedipus doesn't know what parents. Who are they of this world? Who are my parents? And Tiresias says, "This day will show your birth and will destroy you. This is the day you are going to find out who your parents are, and it will destroy you." Okay. All right. They continue on. Tiresias says, "I'm leaving here. You can't hurt me, Oedipus, but the killer is here. In name he is a stranger among citizens, but soon he will be shown to be a citizen, a true native Theban, and he'll have no joy of the discovery." Right? So we're going to find out that whoever was the killer of Laius was a native of Thebes. And he'll discover this news about himself, and he won't be pleased at this discovery. He will exchange blindness for sight and beggary for riches. So it's somebody who now has sight and riches, but who will leave here today with blindness as a beggar. He shall be proved father and brother both to his own children in his house. To her that gave him birth, to his own mother, he will be a son and husband, a fellow sower in his father's bed, with that same father that he murdered. Okay? The prophecy is now completely clear. This is all that's going to be found true of Oedipus. As is often the case with prophets, nobody believes the prophet. Nobody quite understands how what Tiresias is saying here could be true. But nevertheless, he has laid it out in absolutely explicit detail. And both Tiresias and Oedipus leave the stage, leaving only the chorus to digest this information.